Our next guest is a former UFC welterweight champion who's fighting Tyron Woodley at UFC 192 on his journey back to another title shot. Fresh from a relaxing Harley trip around the roads of America, we welcome back the big rig himself, Johny Hendricks, to Submission Radio. How are you, Johnny?
I'm doing good. How are you doing today?
Doing really good, doing really good. We want to hear all about your adventure. You know, you had the big journey recently on your Harley Davidson. Tell us all about the trip. How was it?
The trip was awesome. Just nothing but you on the road was pretty awesome. I loved it. You got to see some beautiful country. It was a little hot, but I loved it. It's something that sometimes you see something and words can't explain. That's what I got to do.
You're having one of those moments right now.
Did you guys, was it a group of UFC guys on the trip?
Yeah, there was there was 5 of us, counting me. And we went over there. We rode all through Colorado, up to Estes Park, and back down. Like I said, it was a pretty fun experience.
Yeah, because I was going to say, did you feel at any point that you guys were like the Sons of Anarchy crew, but really like a UFC crew? And in a lot of ways, you guys are tougher than the Sons of Anarchy crew because you're all made up of like ex-champions and current champions and stuff like that.
You know what? Realistically, it was me and let's see here. It was me and my friends. One of my good friends. He works for Whole Cat, and then his dad.
But his dad's tough. Dad's a pretty tough guy.
Huh?
His dad's a pretty tough guy.
Yeah. Hey, he beat up his son.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a whole bunch of tough guys, and you guys don't need leather or guns to be tough. People can just feel it. Let's talk about the big fight. Dallas, Texas, October 3rd. This is going to be your third time fighting in your hometown. How happy are you to have the home field advantage again and be fighting in Texas?
It's awesome. Anytime I get to fight in Texas, fight at home, it's nice to know that people want to see you fight at your home. You know what I mean? And be able to get fights here is pretty sweet. Home crowd again, and you don't have to travel. And that's right there is a lot of fun.
Well, I mean, you've had some success in Texas. You've been Matt Brown most recently. You won the belt against Robbie Lawler. And back in 2009 in the WEC, you actually beat Alex in a fight of the night performance in the Lone Star State. You must be feeling pretty good about your chances against Tyron, given your history in Texas.
And that's it. Is that you when you feel comfortable and you're ready, and you have the crowd on your side, it's words can't explain whenever you're sitting there and you're walking in there and everybody's cheering for you because they want to see you win.
Is there a lot of pressure? Because we can imagine, you're probably going to have, a lot of people in there, maybe a few hundred people from your hometown in there watching you fight. That's got to be a lot of pressure. If it was us, we'd probably want to go somewhere like Brazil, and then if we lose, we come back and we just lie to everyone. We say, oh, no, we won. You guys weren't there. You didn't see it. Is there pressure for you?
You know what? Realistically, I don't think there's any pressure. I guess I don't let it be. You know what I'm saying? There's no reason to. Yeah, you're fighting at home. Yeah, you're doing things that you that are good, but I don't know. I guess I like that kind of pressure. You want to always win in your hometown or your home state, should I say? And you always want to win in front of your crowd. But with that being said, you try not to put too much into it because whenever you step in there, you got to be focused on the task at hand.
Yeah, for sure. After party at Big Rig Steakhouse. Now, speaking of hometowns, our hometown, Melbourne, in particular, many people believed you'd be rematching Lawler after your dominant win over Matt Brown. It's old news now, but what was your reaction when you saw Condit getting the title shot over you here in Melbourne, Australia in November?
You know what? Realistically, it's not the first time. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you're a little upset, but realistically, you just look at it and say, man, it is what it is. Don't know why, don't know how, but he did. So if he did, then you just sit there and say, hey, get one more win, get one more win, and move forward. To where you sort of do the cowboy. I've been telling everybody, you do the cowboy way. You just sit there and start beating everybody until There are no more number one contenders except for me.
Well, that's exactly right. You're doing the whole, Cowboy Cerrone. You say get one more win. Realistically, if you beat Tyron Woodley, do you think that'll be enough? I mean, because sooner or later, if you go the Cowboy route, I mean, you're already at the top of the welterweight division. Surely there can't be too many guys that you would have to beat. Do you think Tyron, and then you get the title shot?
Well, I hope so. If that doesn't give me the title shot, if I don't, if I beat the number 5 ranked guy, and I beat the number 4 ranked guy, I guess I need to drop down to the number 15th guy, beat them, and that'll give me a title shot.
Right.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up, because let's just talk about this for a second. You're ranked number 1, and Carlos is ranked number 4th on the UFC welterweight rankings. And now that Carlos skipped over you and got the title shot, do you see much sense in having official rankings?
I understand rankings. You know what I mean? I do. There's a place for them. Now, it'd be different if I was 0-2 against Robbie. You know what I'm saying? If I was 0-2, then you sit there and say, okay, how do I get back to being number 1? Or I gotta hope that somebody loses to him, or somebody beats him. Excuse me. If somebody beats him, then I can go back into another title fight. But since it is 1-1, I just feel like no matter what it was, I should have. Nobody should have jumped me.
Yeah, I mean, look, you and the UFC, you've always had a good relationship, but, it must be incredibly frustrating, especially you losing such a close fight to Lawler and beating him once already. Like you mentioned, you guys are 1-1. You're a very positive guy. You're a very kind of roll with the punches, but does it frustrate you that certain fighters, we get priority because they are considered more exciting? And do you worry about ending up in a similar spot to another talented wrestler in Frankie Edgar?
Well, here's the thing. Look at Frankie Edgar. He's exciting, and he hasn't got a title shot in how long? You know what I'm saying? It's just one of those things that here's what I've learned: do not try to think too much. Do not try to think too much. You know what I'm saying? Do your job, and my job is to fight. You know what I'm saying? And the way that I look at it, and the way that I'm thinking of it, is that I can't. Sometimes you have to take it in your own hands, yes, but I'm never going to talk trash or call somebody something or do anything to get a fight. I have kids. I've done so good so far. You know what I'm saying? Letting my fighting do the talking. And if that's what I have to do to get a fight, then I'm not going to do it. You know what I mean? Like I said, then that's wherever I'm going to go with this kind of attitude. I'm just going to keep beating people and beating people and beating people until there is no one left.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it's an interesting one. You fought Carlos, you fought Robbie. What do you think of this fight? Who do you think wins it?
I think it's going to be a good fight. I don't know. The reason why it's going to be tough is because, depends what game plan Carlos Condit comes out with. We've seen him. They keep saying that, he does exciting fights, but realistically, his title shots, they haven't been as exciting. Nick Diaz, 5-round fight. You know what I'm saying? Then George St. Pierre, besides the head kick, the way he fights. You know what I mean? Whenever he fights these guys that he knows that he has to worry about power, and who knows that he might go out there and try to throw offense right off the bat, and he take the fight to Robbie Lawler. Only time can tell. Like I said, there's still a lot of time, and you also got to think too that, all right, if it's when is the fight again? I know it's in Australia. I don't know when though.
Oh, it's pretty much tattooed on our hearts. November the 14th. Here it's November 15th.
November the 14th.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that right there might be a great thing. How well does Robbie recover from this last fight? That might play into a factor. Just don't know. And only time can tell.
Right. I mean, we were surprised, especially, the thing on his face, the second mouth that he had there. We were like, wow, I can't believe we're going, he's going to be fighting in November so soon. But let me ask you this, because you mentioned Carlos Condit, the way he fights in title fights. You and Robbie, you guys fought fairly recently. So logic would say, in terms of marketability, you and Carlos might be the more marketable fight because, you guys fought a while back. Is part of you sort of secretly, not so secretly hoping that Carlos wins so that, the match might be easier to make, assuming you beat Tyron?
Yeah, realistically, I don't care who it is. Yeah, I don't care who wins it. I was hoping that Robbie was going to win this last one, deep down, so that way I can get my rematch. Now that that didn't happen, I don't care who wins this fight. Whoever, whenever. Doesn't matter. But, realistically right now, the only thing I can think of that I know I have to think of is Tyron Woodley. If I don't look for him, he's ranked in the top 5 for a reason. And if I overlook him, then that could be bad news for me, and it might take me 2 more fights to get back to the title.
Mm. Well, it's interesting that you mention that because Tyron has had some big wins, but he struggled against some of the top names in the division, such as McDonald's and Shields. And while he did beat Condit, had controversy because Condit suffered that early knee injury in the fight, which really didn't show us how he copes with guys on Condit's level. I mean, you just mentioned that you don't want to overlook him, but does a part of you sort of not really see him as much of a threat going into this fight?
No, you have to. You have to think of him as a threat. If you don't think of him as a threat, it could be poor judgment. It's a fight, and it's a tough fight. He has wrestling and he has power in his right hand. And whenever you look at those 2 things, if you don't look at him and respect him, then you lose. And when you lose, it takes you that much longer to get back to where you want to be.
Absolutely. I mean, it's an interesting matchup. You guys are both great wrestlers. You guys both have power. He's got the power right. You've got the power left. He's known for his wrestling, much like yourself. When it comes down to the fight, who do you think is the better MMA wrestler? Are you at all worried about his wrestling leading up into this fight? Not worried, but is his wrestling something you got to watch out for?
It is, and then it isn't. Meaning that it is because if you start winning some of the exchanges, who's to say that he doesn't come out and try to get a takedown, sort of bait me into one or try to throw some punches to get to one. So you sort of have to worry about those takedowns. But then again, you don't go in there thinking that that's the only thing he's going to do, because then that might mess up your striking abilities or what you want to do and what you need to do. So that way, let's say he goes out there, I'm worried about his takedowns. I start striking, but I'm not really committing on a lot of punches. That's going to build confidence on him, and the more confidence he builds, that he might use that to his advantage to get some takedowns.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's going to be a very, very interesting matchup. I'm just wondering, when you look at the skill sets that we're talking about right now, what do you sort of see as your biggest advantage over him going into this matchup?
One, fighting a lot of top 5 opponents. Back to back. I think since 2013, I've been fighting top 5 guys. Actually, probably even sooner than that, because I went Fitch, Koscheck, who else? Condit was one of them. Then I had Martin Campman, and then GSP. Then so I've had a lot of them, and I've also had a lot of 5-round fights. So maybe that's one thing that could be in my favor, is that I've had a lot of experience, a lot of exposure to the media and all that kind of stuff. And also the big-time pressure fights. I've been there. So, but realistically, I try not to think of any of that. I know I just named off some of the stuff, but whenever I'm training and whenever I'm doing things, I try to sit there and say, we're equal. We're the same. Because how do I beat a guy that's equal to me? And that's sort of how the way that I try to approach every fight.
Oh yeah, for sure. We've been reading the interviews you've been doing recently, and you're saying things like people are going to be remembering after this fight, your hands, your striking. What has been the focus this training camp?
This training camp, it's been a little bit of striking. It's been, I've been focusing a lot on just, not really even striking, getting back to the raw striking. I've been out pointing everybody's for a while now. I've been striking with some of the best strikers that people told me that I should lose to, and I'm out striking them. And so now it's time to get back to sort of what got me there, and really throw some power into that instead of trying to point people and land hard shots, but try to finish some people, and that's really what I'm trying to focus on, is trying to hit somebody as hard as I can again.
Now, Johny, once you do get your title shot with Lawler, it will be after lots of hard work getting up the ladder. Now knowing how much effort you've put in and how much you're going to have to put in to get another title shot and have a third fight with Robbie, how would it play out differently from your last two fights? Would you be more motivated and more sort of eager to really put on a great fight and take him out earlier than in the other fights that you've had with him?
Well, realistically, eager, no. You still got to fight smart. If you don't fight smart, definitely in those instances, look at Robbie McDonald. He was up 3-1. He fought a smart fight, but his nose couldn't take any more. And that's where you can win fights and still look exciting, but you have to make sure that you do it the right way. But what you have to do is, I'm getting my weight under control. That's one of the things. My weight's starting to get to where it's not the issue anymore, which is nice.
That's good, yeah.
Is, get power back. Just build muscle. I know it sounds weird, but, the stronger I am, the easier some things get. And whenever I feel as strong as most people there, and I haven't been touching weights for the last 3 years, now whenever I'm wrestling people or rolling with people or striking with people, I feel like I'm starting to get an edge back. Instead of being equal with everybody, I'm starting to get an edge.
Johny, we want to thank you so much for your time. Before we let you off, we just got a couple more questions and then we'll finish up. Just want to get your thoughts on this. Recently, GSP was interviewed, and while he discussed how he believed you deserve the next title shot, he also said that, this is a quote I'm reading, "If I would have to bet between Lawler, Hendricks, and Condit, I believe Condit is the one that will emerge victorious. That's on a 5-round fight. He's a nightmare." That's basically the quote. Having really taken GSP to the limit in your fight with him, what do you think of those comments?
Who cares? You know what I mean? Who cares? Yeah. The reason why he's saying that is because the last time I got tired in the third round, right? Okay? But here's the thing. It's a 3-round fight. Everybody's like, oh, if he would have went 5 rounds, Condit would have beat him. Well, no, because if I was training for a 5-round fight, which I think I've proven, that I can go 5 rounds. I can do those things, and that's important. So realistically, who cares?
Yeah, certainly. Now, Johny, before we let you go, we like to ask our guests their predictions for their fights, and obviously still a while away, but when you look at this fight with Tyron Woodley, what sort of pops out into your mind? How do you predict this one ending?
There's a couple ways I see it ending. First and foremost, I want to get my hand raised. I think that's most important. Is get the hand raised. Second is that, hopefully I can go out there and showcase some of my things that I've been working on. Every fight I'm improving my striking, and I think people see that, that I am improving my striking, and that's really important to me because I think that's going to help me further down the road. And not only that, but also show the power that I have now. Getting back to the old ways, that's really what I want to showcase.
Well, extra power and extra muscle. You don't need to sell us anymore, Johny. We can't wait to watch. Guys, don't forget to follow Johny Hendricks on Twitter at Johny Hendricks. And if you're in Texas, you have to do yourself a favor and check out Big Rigg Steakhouse. Like them on Facebook, facebook.com/Big Rigg Steakhouse. And you can watch Johny in action against Tyron Woodley at UFC 192 October 3rd, or due to the time difference, October 4th here in Australia. Johny, we want to thank you so much for your time. Thanks for coming on the show again. Appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, guys. Have a wonderful night.